Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to a new edition of Urban Sentinel Live. It's a product of the Urban Sentinel magazine, part of the Kearney Media Group. I want to welcome everyone here tonight to a new edition of this great talk show. Tell your friends about it so we can move our numbers up and reach more people. We appreciate it. Everything's been great. Everything's going well, but we're going to chop it up for a little while, talk about a little politics here and there. And I'm hoping my producer will come on and hoping my other invited guests will come on pretty soon.
No, he's already here. I see Richard Cuff in the background and everything like that. But I know today's a big day because we got that big
Yeah.
race in Michigan and everything like that. So we're gonna see what happens in that regards and all along those lines. But we do have that big race going on, and we'll see
Right.
what folks got to say about this race because it's an established candidate against the Democratic Socialists. So and a
Yeah.
lot of people are thinking Democratic Socialist means communist, but that is not necessarily what it means and everything
Mm.
like that. But I'd love to
Well,
hear Richard's thoughts around this as well because it's a big race and people are expecting it. I think we got 5 primaries today. Might even be
yeah.
something in his neck of the woods.
When you hear Republicans talking about it, the first thing they want to use is the word is communist.
Hmm.
I got a friend that's a Republican. I told him, I said, look, I'm tired of hearing you call Democrats communists. I said, this is not a communist movement, okay? I said, if you look at the European models, that's what it's based on, okay? But the first thing he want to say, they're communists, and everybody else, and then that guy in the White House, he wants to do the same thing, say that they're communists, But I'm telling you, man, the young people, the young Democrats are really progressive. And even though this lady has spent $63 million in her race so far, that $63 million might not pay off.
Yeah, she's been
You know,
spending a lot of money, having a lot of support from the mainstream and everything like that. But definitely the Muslim Brother is
Mhm.
was the front runner. But I'm also hearing that AOC could be a front runner for the presidential race. So, Richard, what do you think about this notion of AOC
He got to
being a
come.
front runner?
I think he got to come back on. He
Yeah,
went
he got to
down.
come back.
Yeah. But young people now, they don't care about the establishment. Okay, what they want to see is results.
Right.
They don't like APAC, the organization that the United States supports, that supports Israel. They don't like that organization. Their view of the Middle East is that we got to take care of everybody in the Middle East, regardless of who they are, whether or not they're Jewish, Muslim, whatever. We need to stop the bombing. We need to stop the wars over there. We need to come together as a team.
Right.
And they don't like that. So that's the stuff. That's the kind of stuff they're looking at. They're looking at stuff like that. They don't believe in war. They just want this country to run smoothly so they can have jobs and have a decent life
That's
and
all we
livelihood.
want is a job. Yeah, the job is very important, and a lot of people are
Mhm.
concerned about their job status because we got AI, we got other things taking place in the world that
Yeah.
might be impacting the job. I know that I got my nephew, one of the oldest, one is getting ready to go off to college, going to UNCG down there near A&T territory, and I'm sure
Hmm.
that my brother will be wondering about his job prospects after he does his 4 years or 4.5 or 5, or however long it takes him to get his degree. My brother took almost a decade and a half and something like that, but hopefully
Hmm.
Julius won't take that long and everything like that. But and Malik changed his major a couple of times, but right now Julius is thinking he wants to be a studying poli sci and maybe even get involved in law and everything like that. But a lot of people are saying that some of these jobs that people are going for, even jobs that they're studying for, may not be relevant in another 5 to 6 years based on what's going on with AI. But what's your take on this AI movement?
Well, AI is not smarter than us, okay?
Right.
Because, like I said, I use AI and some stuff, but what I do, I read it, I read over it and looking for mistakes, okay? You don't want to send something in and you're not factual correct, okay? So I look for
Right.
mistakes because, like I said, AI is not perfect. But what I would tell young people today is that okay, go to college, if that's what you want to do, get your college education. But while you at it, you need to learn AI because AI is taking jobs. So you need to learn, and so you can be ahead of the curve, so you can be in that development stage. Because I think right now we're in a development stage, but one day the doors are going to close on that, on the development stage. And people are making a lot of money off of it now, But I'm telling you, if everybody would take time out to learn how to use GPT and other apps that deal with AI and writing, they'll put a lot of these people out of business. They're running around freelancers doing stuff for other people.
Yeah, definitely. A
There's
lot of
some
people
big
will be out
money
of
in
jobs big time, everything like
yeah.
that. Hey, Richard, I know that you've been a big fan of ownership and everything like that, but how would you think of us having ownership, whether it's in the movies or in sports or things along those lines? Because I'm looking at these Los Angeles Dodgers, and they just got a third Cy Young winner, and it sounds like they are basically going to be owning baseball for a while and everything like that because they got big dollars behind them and everything like that. And I don't know why we can't put together big dollar teams and have our own version of the Los Angeles Dodgers. We used to have the Negro League and everything like that. But what's your take on this notion that we can't have what we used to have? Maybe even like some Black Wall Streets and stuff along those lines. We're gonna have a Black Business Expo here in Durham at the Haytower where I'm at today on the 8th. So they say they've got 75 plus businesses that'll be selling their wares and selling their products. In some cases, it's product. In some cases, it's services. But it's supposed to be 75 plus that'll be here on Saturday. So that's about 4 days from today and everything like that. But what's your take on this notion of us being in control?
Well, first, guys, I look at it as like we're running a race, right? And if you're going to run a race with somebody that has already done, 250 laps around the track, and you're trying to start there where you got to do 250 laps to catch up, that's not a race we can win. So I think we have to look at it two ways. If we look at it from a standpoint of where they are compared to where we are, and we're trying to catch up with them, that's not going to happen. The system is rigged. There's too much of an advantage, and we have to pick our fight. That's not our fight. Catching up to where white folk are and Elon Musk and all of those are, that's not our fight. Where we need to start is right now. This is the race that we need to run. Pow, the gun just went off. Now let's run that race. And if we look at it from that standpoint, we're at a greater advantage because of what our starting point is. We're starting with the internet. We're starting with AI. We're starting with digital technology. We're starting with things that our ancestors could have never dreamed of when they were plotting on how to get out of slavery or how to get past the civil rights era, how to, get out of the back of the bus. So if we look at each one of those battles and look at what our ancestors were dealing with during those times, this race that we're running right now that starts today at this very moment, we're at a tremendous advantage. So what we have to do now is look at systems that are available to us that we can use. So first thing is take inventory. When I popped in, you guys were talking about AI. And in China right now, not only are they teaching their children in elementary school second and third languages, like that's what they all are getting. So almost, it's you probably won't find a Chinese child that doesn't speak English. That's the first thing that they're doing. The second thing is they're teaching those children not only to use AI, but to use AI to start a business. That's in elementary school. So those are the things that we can do. And we don't have to wait to do them on a national basis. We can do them community by community. And whatever communities are ready to start right now, this race at this very moment, that's where we begin. And I say start small, think big, grow fast, and begin now. And if we can do those four things or do it with those four things in mind, we not only do we have an opportunity to win our race, but we can get to our finish line in one generation. I believe it won't take us 250 years. It'll take us one generation to go from being consumers to being owners and investors. If it could happen faster if it was to be adopted widely, but we've got way too much stuff that we're fighting against to make it easy. But nobody's ever asked for easy. Easy doesn't win the race.
One of the things we're not doing either, I'm with an organization, and every February we have event called Wall Street Reimagined. And we had a meeting Saturday morning, breakfast meeting. And I told them guys, I said, look, it's okay to go up, have these great conferences and everything, but this is the thing. We're doing follow-up with these businesses after the event. Now you saying y'all got 75 people coming over to the cultural center on Saturday.
Right.
After it's over with, is the body going to go out and visit these businesses and continue to follow up with them to see how they're doing and see what can be done to make them stronger? That's what we move the boat at. I mean, it's good to have the event, advertisers come see the Black businesses in the community, but are we going out and doing follow-up work? Are we acting like social workers and going out and checking on our people that need to be checked on and make sure that business is flourishing? Now, I guarantee you, if you take a survey of everyone coming Saturday, they're going to tell you they're looking for something that's going to help them take that business to the next level.
Oh, yeah.
Because let's be honest, half the people that are going to come from the outside the community, all they're going to do is walk around and look.
Yep.
Are they going to pull out their wallet and help the business that day? No. They're just going to be looking.
They're going to be looking, and they're not going to be supporting the businesses. And like Richard and you say, you got to support the businesses and everything like that. Because I know that another thing that I saw that's going on here in Durham is there's a group of folks that are looking for mentors and everything like that. Because we know a lot of folks, and we were talking about this earlier, are going off to college, and a lot of times they need mentors and everything like that. But unfortunately, some of these mentor programs are folks that are just giving lip service to being mentors and everything like that. I mean, I need real mentors and everything like that, because they said there's this new program called Strong Her, Together Her, and they're looking for 4 college-age mentors to help Durham High School seniors tackle college applications through the launch program. Mentors work one-on-one from September through December with a mandatory 1-hour Zoom workshop on Saturday and mentor intros on Tuesday, August 28th, and a kickoff lunch on August 29th. And to your point, some people are just going to come for the lunch. As soon as they go with the lunch, they're not even going to try to mentor these kids.
And that's what bothers me. You put on these events, and as soon as lunch is served, you start seeing people sneak out the door,
Right.
headed on out, done gave up for the day. They don't give you nothing else, And we're supposed to be there learning and supporting. I think that's what we got to do. We got to do more follow-up in the community. Now, Richard, how's that new business doing in Jacksonville that I've seen you working with and advertising?
Oh, that has done really well. That's a company here called Zaxby's. I don't know if you guys have.
Oh yeah, we got them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I love about the Zaxby's fast food brand is that it's a little bit above McDonald's and Burger King's as the price point. Where McDonald's and Burger King are trying to stay, below $6, and meals at $5.99, that kind of thing. Zaxby's, a salad is $12, $13, and a ticket could easily be $21 just for you going there and ordering. But the food is high quality. This area here in Jacksonville is really like it's the perfect test case for us to rebuild the Black economy. If I could get people like yourself and others who are talking about coming together and creating an economy for Black folk, this would be the area to do it. Let me give you an idea. If you can imagine, if you were to take a circle, and that circle is the 295 rim around Jacksonville. If you were to drive it, if you were to drive it, it takes about an hour and 15 minutes to drive all the way around it. That's how long it is. And it goes all the way around the city. Now, Jacksonville is the largest city in the nation because we're a consolidated county. But it's also segregated because there's a river literally that runs right through the middle of the city. So black folk are to the north of the river, whites are to the south, and you can see the economic development. One of the, I don't know if we touched on this the last time we talked, but one of the things that most people don't know is like our expressway system is actually a monument. It's a memorial. It would technically be the largest and most expensive presidential memorial because the technical name is like the Eisenhower Memorial Expressway System or something like that. But when they designed it deliberately to plow through the middle of black communities. And here in Jacksonville, there's a community called La Villa, which was known as the Harlem of the South, but Overtown in Miami had that distinction as well. Overtown had 40,000 black people before the expressway, and after the expressway, there were only 8,000. Same thing with La Villa. Well, this area where I live is north of downtown and a little bit south of the expressway, and it's in this perfect little pocket where in that circle, we're at the top, like northwest corner of the circle. And if you were to put the Trout River on the south, I-95 on the east, and 295 on the north and the west, there's a street that runs right through the middle of that section called Dunn Avenue, and that's where the Zaxby's is built. Now, what's significant about that is for the last 25 years, this area has been growing, but it's been organically growing and it's been ignored by the city. Black people have been moving here, retiring here. It's one of the wealthiest areas in the state, most educated, but it's ignored. So what was significant was when that restaurant moved here, it was without any incentive. Nobody told them, we'll give you X amount of dollars to move into this black community. You know how the government, businesses sit back and they wait on the incentive to come into our communities. Well, Zaxby's didn't wait. They bought an abandoned gas station, I think for like $1.2 million and tore it down and then built the restaurant on top of that. So they probably put about $2.5 million into building this restaurant, creating 50 jobs. What you saw online was a video that I just posted. I was driving past and I saw it open, or there was activity, but it wasn't open. There was like a training day for the employees. I made that video and it took off. It was, almost 100,000 views, and we had a very successful grand opening. And it's an indicator of what can be attracted to our community. And so earlier, Mark, when you asked that question about how do we do this, we start this race today. And if we were to start today, number one, geographically, they're not able to do what they did with the expressways. And I tell folk this is if this were
Richard, I'm sorry, I was just talking to the lady that was teaching the cardio class, but there was another young lady that's originally from Tampa Bay, moved here to Durham, and she's actually got a black chef group. So she's actually got a group called Taste of Black. So it sounds like it's a coalition of black chefs here in the area. But I know that you're down there in Florida and everything like that, but she was doing some fashion and other stuff in Tampa Bay. So her name is Jessica Douglas, but she's got a whole group of chefs that she is organizing that are doing the notion of us supporting each other if we are in the chef realm.
No, and this is exactly what I was talking about, is that we in our own communities have things that we can support, whether it's a group of chefs in Durham or something here in Jacksonville or something up there in the DMV. The idea is it doesn't take much, because I literally I saw, as I was mentioning, I saw the activity at the new restaurant. They were training. I met the owners. I grabbed my camera and I stood in front of the restaurant and I talked about what it meant to this community, and it took off. And from there, we've been building a relationship. What we now need to do is find a way to connect our communities. And we have technology. We're working on developing an app right now that does that. that allows us to connect the money that we spend as consumers. I'm gonna put my camera on pause here because I want to show you guys something, and I think they're around here. Hold on one second. Let me show you guys this. Hold on.
Now, has the young lady had an event in Durham yet?
No, she's actually trying to get an event together. She's also talking about possibly doing some podcasting and other stuff, but it sounds like she's has just recently moved here, so it's a new endeavor for her, but it sounds like a good endeavor. She's actually going to be here with that business panel and that business conference on Saturday because she's also with RTI. And I know that when you lived in Durham, you remember RTI because RTI is definitely a well-known institution and everything like that. So it sounds like her day job is working with RTI, which is, if I remember correctly, the Research Triangle Institute International. So they do a lot of that work in the Research Triangle Park in terms of being an independent scientific research institution. So it sounds like she is a scientist by day and a chef or a chef connected person by evening and everything like that. So she definitely will be here working with RTI, which has been doing a number of things. And even to Richard's point, I know that there are some friends of mine that used to work for some of the major pharmaceutical companies, like my friend Birdie. She just recently created a scholarship at North Carolina Central University, your alma mater, and it's in the latest magazine of Central and everything like that. It's named after her and her mother that are both Central graduates and all along those lines. But she worked in the pharmaceutical industry. I first met her when she was working with what was then Glaxo and then became GlaxoSmithKline. I think that's what it is now known as because it's been through so many mergers, I lose track and everything like that. But I know that she's also worked with other pharmaceutical companies and she's also worked with international organizations like through International Focus and stuff like that because she's done a lot of her job was traveling internationally. So she developed a passion for being connected to the international community.
Okay, good.
Well, and one of the things that I think that if I know that this is going to catch on, where I remember in the year 2000, about Bush at the time was running for president. Clinton was wrapping up his 8 years, and every 10 years or so, you would hear, or maybe every 4 years or so, 10 years or something like that. But it would say African American spending power is this. And I remember back in 2000, it was like African American spending power is $200 billion. And it's projected to be $4 billion by, 400 billion by, and then it went 800 billion. And around the Obama era, it was 800 billion. You don't hear them say where it's going to next anymore because it's already crossed $1 trillion and 1.6 trillion, in fact, and on its way to $3.5 trillion, $4 trillion. And the attack on DEI, the attack on government jobs. Government jobs is the reason why African Americans moved into the middle class. Were it not for government jobs, there'd be no African American middle class because white organizations, white organizations weren't racing to hire Black people. So it created government jobs, and government opportunities were the ones that gave us this strong middle class that we have. And we allowed politicians to get in and start calling the government evil. And the only reason why they started calling the government evil because the projections said that if Black folk move into these government jobs, it was going to create a solidly middle class Black community, which it did. Mm-hmm. And then DEI made certain that we got a little bit of advancement in the private sector, but certainly we got the advancement in the government sector. And a lot of these nationalists, white supremacists, or what have you, they get upset when they go to the DMV and they see 8 Black people working behind that counter, or they go to the post office and there's 6 Black folk working in the post office, or they go, call the IRS and a Black person answers. They get upset over that because that's their tax money going to create that job. But they don't equate it to that's black folks serving them and making their lives easier.
Mm-hmm.
So they go and gut it, and now they're upset because services suck. You know, you got lettuce that's killing you. You got germs that's popping up from out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And you got busy signals when you call a government office. Well, you can't have it both ways. So
Right.
What I'm excited about, if I can be excited over the direction that this nation is headed, is that we're making a shift of, like, we can't continue to be consumers, go $800 billion, $1.6 in consumer power, and being $4 trillion in consumer power. That's not going to work. What we've got to do is shift that to now investing. An example that I wanted to show you guys, talking about that space where businesses are beginning to understand that we're as we flex our consumer power. Zaxby's, as a part of their promotions, they offer this thing called the deck of deals. It's like a deck of cards, free deals. And there's 52 cards in this deck, and every week there's a free something that you get. I went through this deck, and there's 13 deals that repeat 4 times. It makes it easy for them to print. But I added all of this up. This deck of deals is $332.72 worth of food on the Zaxby's menu. $332, and they give me that away free. They did it at the grand opening. What we're working now to negotiate with Zaxby's is to make this available so that as consumers, you can buy this deck and benefit our nonprofit. So we're looking at like $49 would get you the deck. And but the goal is for us to create the software that the software tracks the moment you purchase. It also tracks your use of this card. But the next level is to give you points and track your consumerism. What we're not doing, we're not tracking that African-American consumerism, kind of what you said, Reggie, about the businesses, right? We're not working with the businesses, doing the level of, and I won't say hand holding, but it's accountability. We don't have a level of micro accountabilities. Technology will allow us to do that. And if we start bringing technology to the Black community, bottom line is we've got a market now that we can create our own Silicon Valley. We can create our own venture capitalists. We can create all of those things that exist in white society can exist for us. And we don't have to worry now, I don't think, about them coming in and burning it down. Number one, what's great is they're getting older and they're dying, like Oprah said. We just got to wait till they die. But we're at that stage where baby boomers, those that grew up on the racism of the past, are taking it to their grave. Like 11,000 a day, every day, are passing away. And over $100 trillion of wealth is going to transfer. So between that wealth that's transferring, the opportunity for us to start anew, if we can not get caught up in the nonsense that Washington is doing right now, I think we're in a position to bring together some forward-thinking brothers and sisters to map out a strategy and basically create our own 2035 plan. Where do we want to be in 2035? That's what I think we should be doing.
Yeah, and that's a good idea. I wish my cousin could go around the country and talk to leaders, Black leaders in the community, on what he's doing and what he has done to promote Black businesses in Cincinnati, because the economy in Cincinnati has grown because of Black businesses. Okay, his organization has pushed Black business growth, and what he's done is a great model for the community as far as moving Black businesses ahead. and everything, and that's what they got to do. That's what we got to do. That's why I said coming out of Saturday's meeting, there's got to be more visitation to these
I mean,
villages.
part of the problem that exists, and I've said this for years. I know my dad has said it as well, but it comes down to something that even exists in civil rights and other things like that. We are good with creating plans, but we're not always good at the follow through with the plans and everything like that. To your point, Reggie, we're good at coming up with these great ideas and everything like that. I have oftentimes said on my own show, the online dinner party, that there is a quote that my friend Ray Pascal has, and this is a quote he came when he was the booking agent at the Carolina Theater. But this is this notion that everybody is a great promoter until it's time to cut a check, which means that we sometimes have these great grandiose ideas. Even here, there's some grandiose ideas about what can be done in terms of recreating the old magic of the Black Wall Street and everything like that. But a lot of times we don't necessarily have a true plan in motion, or if we have a plan, it's kind of like that political thing that happens. A lot of times we know that politicians will come up with these great ideas and these great things that they're going to do, and they may accomplish one or two goals, but then after those goals have been reached, then the movement stops. I mean, how many times have we had people thinking about Black Lives Matter until there is another incident, like what took place with the gentleman that disappeared over there in the coast, and now people are energized and everything like that. But I mean, how often? I'll give an example. We saw a lot of people during 9/11. 9/11 was 25 years ago next month, and everything like
Right.
that. We saw a lot of people during 9/11 and even during Katrina that were very compassionate toward their fellow man, and they were going out to help their fellow man. But then, as soon as that disaster was over, we went back a lot of times to our selfish ways, which is not helping our fellow man or not reaching out to help that common man. I mean, some of us developed better habits and maintained those better habits, but a lot of people, it was a one-time activity, and then after the activity was not a disaster anymore, then we went back to the rat race and everything like that. So I don't know if y'all agree with me, but that's just what I'm seeing. Is a lot of times we come up with these grandiose ideas or these things that we're going to do to make the world better, but we don't necessarily have the action plan to make it happen.
I agree. I agree. I agree. And this is one thing we got to realize too. First thing we say, we can't shop with black business because their stuff is a little higher. Sacrifice, pay the extra money, sacrifice to help this business grow. Then the prices will come down. But we're not even willing to do that. We're not even willing to sacrifice to help these companies move along.
One of the things that I'll say it this way, and I coach in this sense. If you think about our economy like a mountain in 4 different levels, the first level is the systems. Everybody has systems. You get a system. You get a system. Everybody gets a system, right? And those who sell systems are the ones who really make the money. A perfect example is in 1849, which is where the San Francisco 49ers get their name, the gold rush of San Francisco. Everybody went there because there was gold found in them now hills. And when the gold was gone, they stopped. Do you know who's still making money off of the gold rush? A company called Levi Strauss. Levi Strauss saw that people were coming over there and tearing up their clothes. And he decided, why not make a pair of pants out of the same stuff that these tents are made out of? Because the tents are rugged. So he took the material, the denim material from tents, and made pants, and those pants are still sold today. My point is, the gold that everybody rushes to get is really not where the value is. The value is in the tools, the systems. There are more people who are going to make money selling systems and tools to those who are seeking gold. So let the people who want gold go for the gold, and service them. That's the systems. The next one is have a strategy. Ronald Reagan.
To your point, I was just looking it up because there are several companies that started this gold rush. Ghirardelli Chocolate Company went from gold to chocolate. Wells Fargo, which is the stagecoach delivery service, began in 1852 in San Francisco, founded by Henry Wells and William Fargo. The company was created to provide a safe way for people to send gold money and mail during the gold rush. Like you said, Levi Strauss, also Studebaker Company, the wagons to the cars. So the Studebaker Company began in 1852 when brothers Henry and Clement Studebaker started making sturdy wagons for pioneers heading west during the gold rush. As time went on, they evolved the business to build some of the first automobiles, and even American Express. That's another money mover that started during the gold rush. So it just says during the 1880s, many people traveled west in search of gold and new opportunities. As they settled in new areas, they needed supplies, services, and support, which led to the creation of many businesses. Some of these companies, like Levi Strauss and Wells Fargo, are still famous today. So it looks like there was an American Express was started in 1850 in New York, but it became more important during the gold rush, even though it was founded by William Henry Wells, William Fargo, and John Butterfield to help people send money, mail, and gold safely across the country, making it easier for travelers and miners to handle their finances. So there's a lot of companies like that that we don't even think about the fact that they started during this time of the gold rush.
Yeah, but that's my point. Is the same thing is going to happen with AI. See, AI is the gold. Everybody is rushing to AI, but the AI is going to be gone, just like the gold. The gold is gone. There's no more gold that the gold rush is over, and these companies are still existing. And so what happens is what we've got to focus on what comes after the rush. What comes after the rush? And if you can look at what comes after the rush, that's where the money really is. Because there's more money to be made after the rush. You can look at anything that happened. There's more money to be made after it. Everybody initially jumps out there to make the money. Yeah, those are the initial investors, and sure, they'll get over like fat rats. But for the most part, when an economy is built, it's built off of those who understand systems and strategy. But then the next level is structure. And this is where we miss the boat. They go back and they build everything on a pre-existing structure. Their banking system, that's the Wells Fargo. Wall Street got in on the gold rush. Pre-existing structures just were brought in. We don't have the structures. And we don't have the structures, nor do we have the infrastructure.
But part of that is, but Richard, part of that is also when we have the structures, we allow folks to either manipulate us into selling out, because I know that's partially what happened to some degree in the Black Wall Street here in Durham, but we also allow the destruction of what we had, because we know that the fires are what pretty much destroyed the infrastructure that we built in Wilmington and everything like that, and the highways destroyed Jackson Ward there in Richmond, as well as they destroyed a lot of what was here in Durham. Tulsa was bombed and everything like that. Now, some of this was people in our own society that were involved in the destruction and were sellouts, for lack of a better term, and everything like that. But definitely, we sometimes can see the writing on the wall. I mean, we see it even with gentrification and the number of white neighborhoods that are coming here and everything like that. I mean, I just told y'all we had a cardio class that was taught by an African-American woman, and I did see a young Chinese woman that was coming here because she wanted to get some of that rhythm into the class as well and everything like that. So literally right behind me is a neighborhood that used to be owned by a black construction company. It was actually Ron Rofox that owned Foxfire, but he sold it his family after he passed, sold it. And I can guarantee you, I have not done a demographic study, but I would think that probably half of those are not African Americans, even though it's the African American society. There's probably a lot of white families back there and probably a lot of Hispanic families back there. So, and nothing wrong with them moving into our neighborhood, but I just want them, if they move into our neighborhood, to at least try to understand the culture that they are moving into. Don't move into it and think that you don't have an obligation to know the history of where you were coming into.
Well, I think the thing is, too, we've been struggling for so many years. And once we can get a pot of gold, we're going to go to the pot of gold. We don't understand what longevity means. We don't understand generational wealth and passing it on down. We just want to take the goodies and run with it right there and then. I think that's what hurts us. You look at Carol's daughter.
But that's part of the problem. Yeah. But that's part of the problem is the generations want to maintain it and everything like that. Because I just have said, and I'll use the example again of the Carolina Times, which was a major paper here in Durham, North Carolina. And I know I was talking to some family members, and they said there was no way that that fourth generation person wanted to go into the newspaper field. Now, I'm not saying everybody got to go into the field that their family is in, because there's people that don't want to be funeral home directors, even though that can be a fourth or fifth generation. But I'm just saying that it does seem like some people, once they get further removed from the founding, are less interested in maintaining that tradition, to both you and Richard's point and everything like that. I'm sure the same thing goes on with the Afro-American in Baltimore and even whatever the black paper is in Jacksonville. That by the time you get to that fourth or fifth generation, they're like, I ain't trying to do that field no more. I don't want to be slapping no newspaper ink or running dead bodies if I'm doing the funeral home business and everything like that. So how do we get people to realize the importance of this generational business that they're in? And maybe it's not for them to be in. Maybe they turn it over to a cousin.
That's exactly the point. The key is I want you to, while you're searching there, Mark, go pull up Asian American Hotel Owners Association and look at the history of them. They were two separate organizations, and part of where the Asian American Hotel Owners Association came in, and these are primarily Indians of Asia, right? But they came over here and they saw that along all of these expressways, on almost every exit, there was a hotel on every exit, motel or a hotel. And as white folk began to move out further into the suburbs, those hotels started dying off. And they're right there in the middle of black folk communities. You got to pass them to get to the black community, and you got to drive past them to get out of the black community. And black folk were driving past those hotels for years. They're sitting there abandoned. These Asians came over here, and at first they owned 0% of them. Zero.
It says that they own 60% of the hotels. I'm looking at the line. They say that they own, as of 2022, approximately 20,000 members who own about 60% of the hotels in the United States. So this is a group, the HOA, that provides service and support for hotelers through its educational offerings, policy, and political advocacy for the interests of hotel owners and opportunities for professional development. But to your point, it sounds like they own about 60% of the hotels. So I know we've got a number of hotels here, including some major chains like the Marriott and Comfort Inn, and a number of others that are within, and a number of others that are here. And I would not be surprised if they are not part of that 60% ownership. I just named a few of them, and all along those lines.
They don't own like a lot in the major hotels. What they own a lot of is the mom and pops around.
That's exactly. Yes, that's
what they come in and buy out, and then they put the money into them. Then they go back to the franchise owner and they carry that sign. Okay, they become a part of the franchise system so they can have the reservation system. But they go around by these mom and pops, pick some up, go back to the national chain and say, look, I want to be part of your hotel group. Okay, pay that money, you get the reservation system and everything, and you're off to the races.
Well, another area is there. When I was in the DMV, I met with one of these young Chinese kids. I mean, he had to be 19 years old, 20 years old. His father had just given him over 2 or 3 of the restaurants. Oh, those restaurants, if you go to a Chinese restaurant, the duck sauce and the soy sauce and those packets, they all look the same.
They all come from New York City.
They all come from the same supplier. The same builder builds the restaurants. And then what they do is there's a visa that you can get coming over from China that's not the same. The Mexicans are fighting to get over here, but why do you not have that with Chinese or any other immigrant? Because their visa is allowing them to come over because they're working at a restaurant or a business. And so they come over to work at the business, but they come over penniless. Why? Because those who are already here will lend them the money to operate that restaurant or that hotel. And then they work it off for 3 or 5 years or whatever the amount of time to pay down that loan. And then after they pay it down, they own 49%. They never give them 100% because the association owns it or the lenders own it. But that's how they do it. and they're happy owning 49% of the restaurant because they get to bring their family over to work at the restaurant. And that's how they're doing it. They come over here, but they mainly come over here to get the education so that they can go back to China and dominate over there. So that's their strategy. So the structure, meaning the federal government's visa system, allows them to operate. So that's where we need to be focused on. Maybe we need a conference. Maybe we need to like get the best of the best thinkers in the room. We got some highly educated and some wealthy Black folk. Let's create a system. Let's create a strategy, and let's create the structure. Now, what we're never going to be able to do is move up to the top level, and that's the spirit. And therefore, I say you have to have a top-down approach as well. Spirit, structure, strategy, system. And if we can get those two going, which I know we can make a difference in the future and close this wealth gap and address the issues in just one generation. So that's why I started our business alliance. I started, in fact, I didn't even make the connection that I started our December Business Alliance the same year that of 9/11. It kind of like got lost in the sauce because once I started it, then came the attack, and of course all the focus went to terrorism and everything else. But I believe that where we can own the space that African Americans can own is entrepreneurship, not Black business. Because when we say Black business, we literally take 85% of the other business off the table. We can own all entrepreneur and basically be the support for every entrepreneur. Now, most white folk are not out there trying to be entrepreneurs in the level of, because they don't have to hustle, right? They don't have to hustle and start a business. You're not going to find the average white person coming into the Black community and setting up a business. You don't have that. So we can own entrepreneurship as an association, the same way the Asian American Hotel Owners Association, the Chinese Restaurant Network. We can do the exact same thing with small entrepreneurial ventures, the car detailing, the car wash, the barbershop, all of these businesses that are making, that I'd say $250,000 or less. There's millions of businesses doing that. And the federal government is not focused on those because the federal government considers a small business making 250 million or less. So Wall Street's going after those that are trying to do 250 and above. The private venture.
How did we get past that mindset of not thinking that we can do it though?
Because what we have to do is recognize not W.E.B. Du Bois had a really good mindset with focusing on the talented 10th. He was saying, look, we only need 10%. But the problem with that was, the talented 10th got educated and they never came back. Them jokers like, see ya. We gonna live in this gated community. I'm gonna get me a white wife, a white husband. I'm gonna put my kids in private school. And the talented 10th went off and they never came back. They ain't come back. So the talented 10th is out there, but they're making that money and they're living the life because they can access stuff that they couldn't access that the other 90%. So what we have to do is build within that 90%, do the reverse. Not necessarily the talented 10th, which is the top, the cream of the crop. Let's do the 10% that's the most likely to succeed. The seed that we can put in the ground. That's the ones that we need to focus on. Those are the ones that people are overlooking and ignoring. That's why I work with children. I mean, the 90% of the children with whom we work are not going to be violin students. They're not going to be virtuosos. But what we're planting in them is something very simple. It's called executive function. Executive function is just simply the ability to think 2 or 3 steps ahead, what's called second and third order thinking. A 4-year-old pushes another 4-year-old because they cut in line. But that's all they think about. You cut in front of me and they push. They don't think if I push him, he's going to fall. That's second order. They don't think if he falls, he's going to hurt himself. If he hurts himself, I'm going to get in trouble and my parents are going to get a phone call. They don't think that far ahead. That they don't have that executive function yet. And if a child doesn't develop executive function, they can grow up to be president of the United States and not have executive function. Trump has no executive function. He fills it up with narcissistic behavior where it's only about him. And so if you don't develop executive function as a child, you don't stand a chance as an adult. And that's where we have our opportunity here. I mean, in 10 years, guys, we could have 6-year-olds who are dominating the world of entrepreneurship at 16. But we've got to begin now with what we have.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Hey, Richard and Reggie, this is a quote from W.E. Du Bois, and I think it actually is very pertinent to today's times, because one of his quotes is, either America will destroy ignorance or ignorance will destroy the United States. And some people may think that that's where we're heading into is now. And he said the cost of liberty is less than the price of repression. And I know that even here, there's a big quote that he got where basically he's talking about the fact that everything could be created by African-American hands. And I don't, the quote is too far away for me to look in from this particular computer, but basically it's the notion that you can be born at a hospital, which would be Lincoln, and be buried with a funeral home, but you could also get your own mattress by somebody that was made out of African-American hands. That's right, you didn't have to go to Sears or go to Mattress World, and you could get a suit that was made by an African-American brother, and you could get food from a African-American as well. So everything was pretty much in our neighborhoods, and this could exist whether it was Jackson Ward or whether it was Rosewood or whether it was a number of these Black Wall Streets that existed throughout the country and everything like that. But to your point, a lot of times we're not thinking about that, and we're thinking that something that is a good business that it's not for us, or that it's not like a trite business. Like I know a lot of people were thinking, I don't want to own a convenience store, but the convenience stores make a lot of money, as do those convenience stores that are by gas stations, and we know a lot of them are owned by people from other countries and other parts of the world, and a lot of times they're in our neighborhood. I know that right near where I'm at Duke Manor, which isn't that far from one of the hoods, Daymar Court and everything, there are at least 3 or 4 that are within walking distance and everything like that. But I think all of them are owned by Asian gentlemen, to your point about the hotels and everything like that. One might be owned by a white gentleman, but I know that they're not owned by us that I'm thinking about, and all along those lines. So what's your take on the fact that some people be like, I don't want to own no convenience store, that's too much work.
And you made a good point there. Most blacks want to 8 to 5. Okay? They don't realize the amount of money can be made from a convenience store. When I was with 7-Eleven as a franchise director, I had stores that on a yearly basis, the franchisee was bringing in $1 million. Now, that's not the norm. Okay? Everything depends on location. We had some good locations. But it is possible to get into locations that you can bring home $1 million a year. But it's hard work, because if your third shift person don't show up, you're going in there to work third shift. It's your business. You better get out of bed and go in there and work.
You got to do the third shift.
That's right.
You got to do the third shift if they don't show up and everything. Yep.
Here's what I think, and we don't see it because we're not looking at it in this way. A friend of mine said to me, every time you hear the word act, or an act was passed, or a bill, when you look at a bill, the bill was signed into law. He said, forget about like the 1,000. If it's 1,000 pages, go to those last pages, because the last few pages are talking about how much is being allocated, where the money, that's the money that's being set aside. Look at that. We've got 3 acts, 3 bills signed into law. 2 of them came from President Obama, and 1 of them just recently signed. And I believe that those can be 3 powerful foundations for us to systematically and strategically build the foundation. Number one, the Affordable Care Act. That, as much as the Republicans have tried to destroy it, they can't. What we don't have is, we're not electing politicians who pledge to strengthen it. We're allowing, because Black folk are not voting and not participating. So the Affordable Care Act never became what it was supposed to become, which it can be if we do it the right way. The other one is the Jobs Act, JOBS, Jumpstart Our Business Startups. And this is where we're allowed to become our own miniature Wall Street, because President Obama created what's called Regulation CF. Now, prior to that, you had Reg C, A, and D, and forgive me, I don't know all of those. I don't remember all of them. But you had to be accredited investors to get in on those. He created Regulation CF that allows small ventures, what's called an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, a group of investors to pool their money. So you get 1,000 people, and I tell my students this, and some of my coaching clients, if you were to save $166.67 every month, that's $38 a week or something like that. You did that for a year, you would have $2,000.40. And if you had 1,000 people doing that, 4 groups of 250 each, that's 4 churches doing that. Those $2,000 from 1,000 people would be $2 million. How many franchises could you buy? And this is $38 a week. So that mindset between the Affordable Care Act and the Jobs Act, you're investing in that. And then just recently, the one that's really powerful is Congress just voted that Wall Street companies, hedge funds, can no longer buy single family home. They can't invest in single family homes anymore. That's huge. So what that means is these companies can't go in, like in Atlanta right now, I think the number is 600,000 homes in Atlanta are owned by hedge funds. That's Black folk that don't own these homes. But in 7 years, I think they have to come up off of them. That's the next wave. So between home ownership, business investing, and affordable health care, that we can take the money that we save on healthcare and invest it in these small businesses, we can begin to get a system going. So, but while we're doing that, we also have to work on the businesses, the franchise, maybe identify the kinds of businesses that we can buy into, take over, take ownership of. Again, use the organizations that are doing it. And I always point to the Asian American Hotel Owners Association. They had a very clear path. I think when I became aware of them was like 1995, 96, somewhere in there, maybe. It was 2 different organizations and they merged. And at the time of their merger, I think they owned 13% of the hotels. And they said their goal was to get 25 or 30%. They own 60% now. So again, we just have to be very clear, and conversations like this is the beginning, but we have to commit to having these conversations and then putting action to the conversation.
Okay. Well, we're going to get on out of here, but the last question I have is, where do we go from here? We know what we got to do. How do we get there?
Well, I think number one is this: we've got to talk it out first. I mean, speaking it into existence is the easiest thing to do. So, like a global summit, organizations coming together, thought leaders coming together in a room. Reggie, you're in a great position as publisher of Urban Sentinel. So, and I called you up there. Our conversation started because I was looking to connect with a media source that we could tap into and have information being fed to our business owners, so that at the very least we're all getting the same information. That's the start, right? And so I would love to work with you for Urban Sentinel to host a summit that we can bring the thought leaders together and we have here with what I started since my wife's passing, the Miriam R. Cuff Innovation Center. So we can use our innovation center and some of the other people that are coming together, and use formats like this, Zoom meetings and what have you. It doesn't take money to do that, but that's the beginning. And then we can put together a proposal. And I think data and statistics tell the real story. So we just have to collect that. And here in Jacksonville, the mayor has someone on her staff that's what's called the director of analytics. He's literally, his job is to crunch numbers and provide data. So I think this area here in Jacksonville is a perfect test case. And that's really what we need, is a test case to say, can we, for instance, bring a hotel to this area where there isn't one? Can we bring a major restaurant where there isn't one? Can we do a micro manufacturing mattresses? Can we manufacture mattresses in this community where there isn't a mattress manufacturer? And how do we put that together and bring the investors in to make it happen and get, crowdfunding investments and get people excited about it? All we got to do, man, is the worst thing we can do is fail.
Yeah.
Trying.
Yeah.
But I'm not above failure, bro.
Because how many black-owned hotels are there right now? I see that there's a group called the BlackHotelGuide.com that maintains a curated directory of black-owned hotels, resorts, inns, and beds and breakfasts across the United States, Caribbean, Africa, and other regions. I know here in Durham we've got the Moorhead Manor, which is a black-owned bed and breakfast and everything like that. But I also know that there have been ones that we have lost. Like there was a major black hotel that existed in Las Vegas that is no longer around and hasn't been around for decades and everything. I think that was the Moulin Rouge or something along those lines, if I remember correctly. And here in Durham, we had the Biltmore Hotel. So there were black-owned hotels, but unfortunately, some of those have gone by the wayside and everything like that. So I don't know how many black-owned hotels there are in the country. Do you have any idea and everything like that?
No, I don't have those. And that's what I'm saying is we can put together the statistics. And I think I said it while you had logged off for a minute. Yeah. But our focus, especially in this anti-DEI and anti-anything black, the moment we say black folk have been and we have never been more than 15% of this nation's population. So that means 85% of whatever we are is not us. Now we can make a lot of money in this 85% blackness, yes. But I'm like, I want the whole pie. I don't want just the black side of it. So my thought that we can, as African Americans, I would rather say entrepreneurial or entrepreneurship. That whole space we can own, because it's not a space that the dominant society, white folk are not trying to leave their corporate positions to go and be entrepreneurs and set up shop in our community. Asians are, because they're not giving a direct path to corporations yet. That's why.
By the way, just to clarify, the Moulin Rouge Hotel was actually the first racially integrated hotel casino in Las Vegas in the United States. So it wasn't black-owned, but it did provide African Americans with access to lodging, entertainment, and high-level jobs previously denied in other casinos. Although it closed for 6 months, the Moulin Rouge played a pivotal role in desegregating Las Vegas and remains a symbol of black civil rights history in that particular city. Because, I mean, it had people like Sammy Davis Jr. and others that were going there. And apparently in 2002, Don Barton became the first black man to wholly own a casino in Las Vegas by acquiring Fitzgerald's Casino and Hotel on Fremont Street. His ownership marked a historic milestone in black entrepreneurship with the gaming industry. And I might try to reach out to him and see if we can get him on either this show or another show. But it says several modern black-owned accommodations in Las Vegas cater to travelers seeking culturally rich experiences. They include the Mardi Gras Hotel and Casino, located near the Las Vegas Strip. This hotel offers affordable rooms, a 24-hour casino, and a seasonal pool area. Luxury suites near the Lynx Hotel, which is a high-end suite 1 block from the Strip, providing easy access to the monorail and the Las Vegas Convention Center. And apparently, like I said, there are some black-owned retreats options like wellness and yoga retreats are available through platforms such as bookretreats.com. So there are some that are there, and they've also got like for travelers looking to explore Black-owned hotels and experiences in Las Vegas. They can go to the Stay Black Experience. They can go to Black Tribe, blacktribe.org, or they can go to Travel Nowhere, or even the buyblackmainstreet.com, which offers apparently, I'm thinking not just in Vegas, but other parts of the country as well. So definitely there are some places that can go. And I do know, like I said, I know there are a couple of Black-owned bed and breakfasts, and that's actually a nice little business. I know that Daniel Starr and his wife, I think it's Monica is her name, they've owned the Moorhead Manor for a number of years and have done quite well with that. They even do like some scavenger hunts where they've done stuff. I think the Arts Council maybe once or twice here at Daytime, but they've done a lot of different ways of getting their name out there and everything like that. Because you got to have some innovative marketing no matter what you're doing.
If you were to look up what's called the Mary Elizabeth Hotel, Overtown, it's been long since closed, but I think that it's like the spirit of the Mary Elizabeth. It can come to life. It was a Black-owned hotel in Overtown section of Miami, and back in the 40s and 50s, when acts like Sammy Davis Jr., Ella Fitzgerald, Nat King Cole, they would all perform on Miami Beach. They had to be off the beach. Employees, basic people had to be off the beach by 8 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And by 11 o'clock, no Black person could be on the beach. So even Sammy Davis Jr., after the show ended, they came over to Overtown and they jammed at the Mary Elizabeth Hotel. And that's that area of 40,000 Black people thriving. It was called the Harlem of the South. And then they built the expressway right through the middle of Overtown in the 60s and 70s. And then Mary Elizabeth closed down. My goal has always been, my niece, in fact, she's, she's in almost 40 now. But her name is Maureen Ashley. And I've always thought that name, Maureen Ashley, is a cool name for a hotel. And my sister-in-law didn't know it at the time, but I had that name in mind for the hotel when she was wondering what to name her daughter. And I said, Maureen Ashley. And now she's carrying that name, but I would love to build the Maureen Ashley in the spirit of the Mary Elizabeth. And I think that we're in the perfect position to do it now. The bombs are bursting in air as far as the racist goes, but Will Smith said it perfectly. Racism is not getting worse. It's getting filmed.
Yeah, and just to answer my question I asked earlier, I just looked it up. I said, according to the latest data from the National Association of Black Hotel Owners, Operators, and Developers, Black-owned hotels only account for 2% of the United States. So apparently we only have 2% of the hotel industry here in the country and everything like that. And they do list in Travel Nowhere some of the top Black-owned hotels and resorts in the area. The Urban Cowboy is a hospitality brand that started as a passion project turned obsession for Leon Porter and Jersey Banks after they built their dream home and opened it to the public in New York City. Their home became a place in Manhattan where people found reprieve from Manhattan and made lifelong friends. So the Urban Cowboy is one of them. I'm also seeing one called the Ivy Hotel. I think that might be in your neck of the woods, Reggie, because it says some real life Bridgerton vibes right in the U.S. Baltimore, Maryland's Ivy Hotel is the place to be, voted as one of the top 3 luxury hotels in the U.S. The 17-room hotel is glorious. It has a luxury spa, alluring public spaces, and a restaurant for guests and everything like that. But it sounds like it's right there in Baltimore, and it's owned by Eddie and Sylvia Brown. So it's some folks in your neck of the woods. And the Aquaba Mansion in Brooklyn is another one that I'm seeing, and the Salamander Resort and Spa, which is located in the heart of Virginia's horse and wine country. So those are 4 that I saw, and I'm sure if I went further, I could run into some others. But those are like some of the top 4, including one in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, but the Shalimar is owned by Robert Johnson's ex-wife. She owns that. The Shalimar Hotel and Resort and Spa. He owns that. Wow. Robert Johnson, he was the owner of BET at one time.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, so that's his wife. And the hotel in Baltimore is but it's luxury. Okay? You know, the restaurant is a 5-star restaurant. Well, I say a 4-star restaurant. But in the hotel, because it's compact, 17 rooms, he does well. He does well. Okay, let's roll. Guys, been good, been
Looks like he
real.
does well and everything else. He does.
Yeah. Looking at the Michigan race.
It's been real, and I guess we'll be back next week with another exciting episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
What's going on in the Michigan
guy-
race? Because that's what we talked about at the beginning. Then we got into this. So
Yeah.
he is
Okay.
winning. The progressive guy, Abdul. Yeah.
Yeah, he's winning by 11%. 11%. Okay,
Oh, yeah,
everyone.
that's a done race.
Yeah. Want to thank you for watching the Urban Sentinel show tonight, listening in, see what we're talking about. It's all about economics, and we got to keep working on it.
All right. Good,
All right.
good
Have a
Y'all
good
on
night.
next week.
And we'll see you next week. Take care.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.